Thank you very much, and I would ask up front for unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business for up to 10 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. And let me just say up front, I very much want to thank my colleague from Washington, Senator Murray, for her leadership on this issue and for the opportunity to work together to address this very, very important issue of making sure that we eliminate sexual assaults that occur within our military and that the victims of these crimes get the respect, the support, and the justice that they deserve. And I'm very honored to work with you on this, and I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to work with you on this important legislation to address a very serious problem in our military. And I approach this issue not as someone who comes from a military family and has such great, deep respect for the military, as I know Senator Murray does with the important position she has on the Veterans Committee, but also someone who serves on the Armed Services Committee, and someone who worked in my prior career extensively with victims of sexual assault. During my time as a prosecutor in New Hampshire, and then later as the state's Attorney General, I saw the devastating impact of these types of crimes. And I also saw the real need to address what is too often a silent crime, and the victims often suffer in silence for fear of coming forward and not being supported when they are to come forward and report a sexual assault. And so that's very important, and that's why I also supported efforts earlier this year that I know Senator Murray was a very strong leader on in reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act. So I want to thank you for your leadership on that as well. Currently, military sexual assault occurs at alarming levels throughout all branches of our military. And according to the Department of Defense's estimates, 19,000 service members were sexually assaulted in 2011, a rate of over 52 per day. And despite these shocking figures, fewer than 2,800 assaults against service members were reported to the Department of Defense over the same period. The Department of Defense Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office's annual report, which was actually just released today at the same time that we are filing our legislation, concludes that the number of people who made an anonymous sexual assault claim but never reported the attack increased from 19,000 in 2011 to 26,000 in 2012, nearly a 37% increase. Yet the number of reported sexual assaults against service members only increased. In other words, those that they did report and come forward only by 8%. And so this is a dramatic difference of people that were victims but then feel that they can have the support to come forward and report the crimes that have been committed against them. And astonishingly, as Senator Murray mentioned, just yesterday it was reported that the police arrested a lieutenant colonel in charge of the Air Force's Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Branch and charged him with sexual battery, bringing this issue very much to the forefront, given the fact that this individual was charged with important responsibility over the sexual assault prevention program. It's important to understand why sexual assault is so destructive, especially when it occurs within our military, of course, when it occurs anywhere, but also in our military. Sexual assault is a serious and unacceptable crime that can inflict lasting emotional and physical impact on the victims of these crimes that can last for years and throughout their lifetimes. But in the military, sexual assault can also damage unit morale, readiness, the preparedness of our troops, and also military sexual assault can negatively impact the well-earned reputation of those who serve honorably, which is obviously the overwhelming members of our military who serve our country with great courage and with great character. So we must aggressively tackle this problem to compassionately help victims, but also to protect the good order and discipline that ultimately is undermining and supports the readiness of our military units. We do our military and our service members little good if we ignore this problem. Conversely, it's very important that we pass common sense legislation that will help solve the problem. But we should make no mistake, the vast majority, again, of our men and women in uniform serve with tremendous dignity and honor. And the United States continues to be the very best military in the world because of the character, quality, and courage of our men and women in uniform. But when a service member fails to live up to our values and commits a sexual assault, we must ensure victims have the support they need and that the perpetrators are held accountable and are brought to justice. That is why Senator Murray and I have introduced this legislation today, and our legislation, titled the Combating Military Sexual Assault Act, would expand and improve military sexual assault prevention and response resources available to the victims of these crimes, building on the lessons we have learned from a pilot program that is already in place in the Air Force. Our bill would provide trained special victims counsels to victims in all service branches to help them throughout the process. And these counsels can help comfort and advise victims after the crime has occurred. The Special Victims Counsel can also provide victims the confidence that they need to come forward, report the crime, and seek justice. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Welch, testified this morning before the Armed Services Committee that the evidence is clear that providing Special Victims Counsel to those who suffer from this crime has been, quote, immensely helpful in the Air Force. And so every victim of crime within our armed services deserves to have the support of the Special Victims Counsel. Our bill would also ensure that sexual assault response coordinators are available to members of the National Guard and Reserve at all times. And regardless of whether the service member is operating under Title 10 or Title 32 authority, this is very important that we get this in the law now so that our guardsmen and women they get the support that they deserve, because we could not have fought the battles and the wars that we have fought without their courage and their bravery and the sacrifices that they have made. Our bill would also make certain that sexual assault cases are referred to the general court-martial level when sexual assault charges are filed, or to the next superior competent authority when there is a conflict of interest in the immediate chain of command. And right now, the way the system is set up, there isn't a set mechanism where there's a conflict of interest. This common sense approach would recognize the uniquely devastating damage sexual assault crimes inflict on individuals and ensure that victims can have confidence in the military court justice system. In conclusion, allowing this problem to persist is simply unacceptable, both for the victims and for the morale and readiness of our forces that do so much to ensure the freedom of this country. We must continue to make clear that sexual assault in the military simply will not be tolerated, and we must match these words with actions. And our legislation does just that. I look forward to working with the Department of Defense, continuing to work with Senator Murray, and thank her again for her leadership on this, and my Senate colleagues on both sides of the aisle to strengthen existing laws and policies so that all military sexual assault victims can come forward without fear of retribution and with confidence that they will receive the support, care, and justice that they deserve from our country. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.